Okay. Good morning again. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this Monday morning. And I really hope everyone was able to gain an extra hour over the weekend, maybe sleep in a little bit or did something that they enjoyed. My name is Megan Tai. I am the Director of Contact Center and UC Solutions here at Telarus. And today we're going to be discussing unified communications, the gateway to contact centers. So what we have is this is one of a series of 4 different webinars that we'll be hosting around contact center, and they are recurring. These webinars will be hosted every first and third Mondays of every month, same time, which is 8 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, and it's the same login channel. So towards the end of this month, we'll have another webinar on the 19th that's really about how to prospect for contact center opportunities. We'll help you figure out how to go about generating your own leads. In December, we're going to have a couple more. One on December 3rd that talks about the factors that's driving the customer experience in contact center today. Customer experience is huge, right? It's a huge requirement these days, so we'll talk about what's driving that. On December 17th, we'll talk about, well, what is a contact center exactly? What's all the hype? Why should you be selling it? And we'll help you figure out how to go about selling it and asking the right questions. And then in early January, on the 7th, we'll come full circle, and I will once again host this webinar here where we're talking about unified communications and the way to contact center. How do you have that discussion? So I've included a link here. It's on our website. Feel free to take a look and do a deeper dive on what these webinars are about, and we hope that you can register to this link and join us at one of these future webinars. All right, let's first talk about UCaaS. I would guess that most of you on this call today are very familiar with UCaaS, Unified Communications. You're familiar with the features and functionality, and you're probably very familiar with the suppliers that you see here. And this doesn't include all of our suppliers, but I'm sure you're very familiar with the names. But the real big question is, how do you differentiate between them, right? So many of them do very similar things, but how do you make that differentiator and be able to recommend the right solution for your customer? And we here at Telarus, we can help you with that. So this little spectrum here that I'm showing really shows you the whole gamut of what is provided, what these suppliers can do for you, anywhere from just a basic voice at the bottom of the spectrum, all the way to the top where they can provide you with a full, complete solution as a platform. And anywhere in between, which could include meetings like we're doing today, right? A virtual meeting where we can also chat and text and message one another in real time. Where we can also offer collaboration. We see organizations today where they are hiring more and more remote workers. So being able to collaborate internally and externally, regardless of where you are, has become very important. Video, right? Video has been around for a while, and in the past, it really was a standalone feature or product, but now we're starting to see it become more incorporated into the complete solution for a customer. Integration. I got to tell you, for I would say about 90% of customer calls that I'm on, they will tell you that they have a huge requirement to integrate a UC provider into their current systems. And you know, in the recent past, it used to be if you're a supplier who's integrating into a Salesforce system, that was very different. It was unique. That's no longer the case. I think customers today expect that these providers can integrate into Salesforce out of the box. But what they're looking for is deeper integrations, maybe into their custom CRMs or some of the other systems that they have in place. So that's the expectation these days. And then finally, Teamworks. This is one of my favorites. Teamworks is really a way for you to work closely with the groups, internally or even externally. And for me, this is important because I'm a remote worker. I'm out of Washington. And I don't get to the Telarus office, but maybe once a quarter. So it's really important for me to be able to collaborate with my teams and always be in the loop. So here at Telarus, we use a collaboration tool on a daily basis. We set up a couple different chat rooms. One is a chat room for our engineers. It's called Ask an Engineer. So anyone internally, if you have a question for one of our solutions engineers, you can go into this chat room and ask your question, and the engineers can answer in real time. And even on my team, our UC and contact center specialty team, we have something set up for our team where anyone can ping us at any time and say, I've got a partner on the phone, he's got this question, who would you recommend, or can you get on a call with my partner? And we're able to help each other out in real time. So that's hugely important, and it's one of the biggest things that we're seeing as a requirement today in the space. So again, you see all these providers here, And we've listed them according to where we think their core expertise is. And you're, like I mentioned, you're familiar with all these providers, but the big question is, how do you differentiate between them, right? How do you know what's different, and how do you know when they're a good fit for what your customer needs? So the next few slides, we'll talk about how we go about differentiating them and helping you out and your customer out. We're all familiar with the Magic Quadrant, right? You're very familiar with this quadrant here, and Gartner released it about a month ago for UCaaS and contact center. I would say about 60% of the time when I'm on a call with a customer, they're not sure who to go to, right? They know that they need to make the switch and they want to talk about UCaaS, but they really don't know which suppliers to go to. But what they will tell me about 60% of the time is they say, you know what, there's companies A, B, and C that I've heard of. They're the leaders in the UCaaS Magic Quadrant. I want to make sure I'm aligned with those guys. I want to talk to them. What do you know about them? So what we do is talk through them. And honestly, I think we really need to listen to what your customers want, right? What are the drivers that we need to focus on so that we can determine what the best solutions are for them and bring in those suppliers as needed. You could have a customer who says, you know what, I don't care. I don't care about pricing. I just want to align myself with that provider who's going to provide me with the best updated technology there is out there. I don't care about anything else. Well, if that's the case, then that's fine. At least we know what to do and narrow it down to those providers that would fit the mold. You might have a customer who's saying, you know what, I get the feeling that all these features and pricing is very comparable across the board, but can you tell me which partners I can work with or which suppliers who's really easy to do business with and who's not going to treat me just like I'm a customer, but really partner with me, right, on this project and really handhold and give me that special treatment. That's who I'm looking for. And I think for you guys as partners, it's important. You want that experience too. So we don't just listen to what our customers are wanting, but we listen to you as a partner. And maybe there's some suppliers that you have better relationships with and you know you're going to get a good experience with, and we'll go that route. And then finally, too, maybe your customer is saying, all right, you know, everything seems to be pretty similar across the board, but who can you tell me that will give me that customer experience that I need? I want to take it to that next level. Who's going to help me improve on that customer experience? So these are some of the drivers that we tend to find out about, right? When we're talking with you and your customer on a discovery call, we need to listen to the customer, and that way we can figure out which way to steer them towards. And in addition to that, you know, we need to look at some of the other key factors. I got to tell you, I don't think that UCaaS has become a commodity, not yet, but it definitely is way more crowded than it was about 5 years ago. So, you know, you keep hearing this phase where it says it's now the race to zero. You know, we don't want to lead on price. We want to lead on value, but we know price comes into play. It's important. So again, how do we make that determination? There's so many providers out there, and it's getting crowded. How do we determine who is the best fit? Some of the key factors that we listen for when we're helping you and your customer on discovery call is, you know, maybe you have a customer who has an international presence, and it's imperative that they find a provider who can give them international toll-free numbers, international DIDs, and be able to port those numbers, and also be able to give them a local dial plan, right? So they can call, if they're over in Europe, they can just call with a local dial plan down the street to a pub or something. So we need to listen to that. And of course, that will narrow down the number of vendors that we have available who can fit that mold. Maybe you have a customer who says, you know, I find CCaaS to be very important, right? Communications platform as a service. I need someone who's going to help me build upon my application. That's all I'm looking for. Well, that's going to further even narrow down the list for us to look at. Maybe you have a customer who says, you know, I'd rather not work with a UCaaS provider who has a broad SaaS platform. I want someone who's built their own technology from the ground up. And there's only a handful, I think, who fits that mold. Maybe your customer has limited IT resources, and they're adamant about, you know, having a provider who will do an on-site installation out of the box, right? Not all providers can do that, so we'll help them pick which ones are able to provide that for them as a standard. We have customers who are looking at deploying a certain number of seats, so it's important, right? They don't want to talk to a provider who doesn't have the experience they're looking for if they're doing a much larger deployment. They have very valid concerns around that, and so we have to be sensitive to that need. And then finally, you've got those customers who may not need a full-blown contact center, but they're looking for some sort of features that will enhance their UCaaS experience. So there's a bunch of providers out there who can do that. So it just really goes back to listening to what your customers want and finding out what fits. Now, I think it's important, though, especially on this webinar, that we have to stop and think, where does the time come when you're having the conversation about UCaaS with your customers? And when does that conversation hit the ceiling about UCaaS? How do you then know when you need to pivot into a contact center discussion? So that's what we're going to get to during this webinar, and hopefully we'll be able to help you figure that out together. So here's another slide here that talks about some of the key factors that I just covered on the previous slide. We have it broken down, right, by pretty much categories on where these UCaaS providers fit in our mind. You know, when a customer comes to us and says, I'm looking for that global presence, I absolutely have to have someone who can support all of my global locations, including those hard to reach places like India or China. And when they bring me that opportunity, there's just a few providers that come to mind, right? Like a Masergy or an 8x8 or a Intelligent IP. These guys have really good international coverage, so those will always come to mind. You know, if they're looking for a CPaaS, if that's important to them, the Intelligent IP fits the mold really, really well, and those guys will come to mind. If they're looking for standard on-site installation, very few providers will do that, but Momentum can, so we'll always put them into the mix. Proprietary platform, very, very few providers out there have their own technology and don't resell someone else's backbone, and so that further narrows down the selection process. So again, all of these things come into play, and we have to consider everything in order to help differentiate who these providers are. I mentioned the total number of seats. It's funny because you don't think about this often, but we're working with a partner right now who came to us in the last week and said, I'm looking to deploy for my customer 6,000 seats for Skype for Business. And they will only talk to a provider who has this experience. They're not going to talk to anyone else. So we started making some calls. We picked about a handful of providers we think would fit, have that fit. And upon talking to them, you know, we had a provider that said, well, we've deployed 4,000. You know, we haven't deployed 6,000, but we have a 4,000 seat customer. And the customer actually said, nope, we're adamant about this. We want someone who has this experience, and we've got 6,000 or more customers. And so they were adamant about it. So we were able to narrow it down to about one, maybe two providers in the mix. So again, it really comes into play. You'd be surprised, but you have to find the right fit. You know, you want the right provider who has that experience that they need to make them feel very comfortable about that installation process. This slide, I really like this slide, because as much as we all know who the UCaaS providers are, and we might know who the contact center providers are, I think the one thing that I wasn't aware of before was the fact that they can really play well with one another. So this goes back to, you know, understanding where do you hit that ceiling for UCaaS, and when do you know you need to bring in that conversation about contact center. And in some cases here, actually for majority of these UCaaS providers, their core really is unified communications, right? They do the voice piece, the collaboration piece really, really well, but they may not do the contact center well. They might have some sort of a contact center light features is what I like to refer to as. But when your customers start asking you those questions and you realize, oh man, I've hit the ceiling, these UCaaS providers can't do this, you need to know, well, who can you bring in then? How do you have that discussion, right, for contact center? So this slide really shows you how they interact with one another. I think most of us know RingCentral, they do a lot with Nice in Contact. They have a good partnership there. But did you know that Fuse also can sell Nice in Contact, and Vonage as well, and Jive? So these are some things that you need to know about. Did you know that Vonage, they not only sell Nice in Contact, but they also play well with 5.9. Oh, and by the way, in the last month or so, they purchased a company called New Voice Media, because New Voice Media can provide that contact center solution. So what Vonage is trying to do now is incorporate that and bring everything in-house so they can provide one solution or one platform for both their voice, for UCaaS, and for contact center. So it really goes to show you how important this contact center is now as we're talking to customers about a UCaaS environment. It really starts to go hand in hand. And the other thing is Nextiva. what I like is when I have customers who are talking to Nextiva and they want to talk to Nextiva, and then we start realizing, oh, they need some contact center functionality that's more than what Nextiva can give them. It makes perfect sense to bring in Connect first, because these two are very well vetted together and they have a strong partnership. And so it makes perfect sense to bring the two in for a complete solution. It really gives that customer a better experience as we walk them through the sales cycle and to have them go through deployment. So this slide is extremely useful to me. It gives me a really good idea and a snapshot of who plays well with whom, who do you start to bring into the mix as needed. And again, it's especially handy when you start to think, where have I hit that ceiling, right, with UCaaS, and when do I have to start pivoting to that contact center conversation. Finally, let's talk a little bit about CPaaS. CPaaS stands for Communications Platform as a Service. This is becoming more and more relevant in our conversations today with UC and contact center. CPaaS, the market is forecasted to grow by about 50% in the next few years, at which time it's going to hit $4.6 billion in revenue. It's a huge industry, and we're starting to see it come up more and more. So much so that here you see TalkDesk, one of our contact center suppliers, they utilize Twilio. Twilio is the #1 CPaaS provider out there. So they work with those folks to further enhance their applications. Corvisa, remember a few years back, ShoreTel purchased Corvisa to build upon their contact center, their cloud solution for contact center. And of course, now Mitel owns ShoreTel. Nexmo, Vonage acquired Nexmo. And in doing so, now they're able to provide a very robust and enhanced SMS service for their customers. So as you can see here, you know, we bring up CPaaS because we are thinking it's important, and you'll have this conversation, and some of our providers today can offer you CPaaS very well. But it's important to understand what CPaaS is, and you know, think of it as, to me, I think an analogy would be like a Lego block, right? So you've got this base foundation, this Lego block, and you just build upon it, right? And IT people and developers love CPaaS because it allows them to build upon their application and improve their applications without having to build out like a really complex back-end infrastructure. So again, CPaaS is important. It's relevant today, and we need to understand what it is and what it can do. So now that you know the UCaaS landscape, CPaaS landscape, how it all comes together, let's talk about, well, how do we make that pivot, right? So again, once you hit that ceiling for UCaaS, how do you pivot over to contact center? To me, I like to keep it real simple. I ask the customer the question, when your customers reach you today, how do they do it? How do they come into your support folks? You know, how are you managing that piece? And I like to keep it simple. If I hear that they are looking at just something like an inbound voice, where customers are just calling in, and then maybe they go through an IVR or an auto attendant, they sit on hold in a call queue for a little bit, and they get transferred to a ring group, at which point an agent might pick up the phone and answer their call. That to me is real simple. That to me tells me that that's UCaaS or a hosted PBX. You can do that all day long on a hosted PBX, and it's more cost effective. It's really simple to set up and deploy. But the minute they start talking about, well, you know what, we're starting to build our Spanish-speaking customer base, I really need the ability to transfer that call to someone who can speak Spanish accordingly. Or, you know what, right now we're only doing voice, but I think we can get a lot more, provide more support if we can do it via chat as well, or even take emails in. CRM integration, right? The minute they start talking about CRM integration, and I'm not just talking about a screen pop or a click to dial, but deeper integration, the minute they start talking about that, you know you have to pivot and talk about contact center. Maybe as you're asking them the questions like, well, what are your pain points today? You know, what's stopping you from growing your business? And they tell you, well, you know what? I've got a bunch of agent churn. They're quitting on me every month. I don't know what to do about it. You immediately realize, oh, you know what? I have to start talking about contact center. We have a solution for that can give them more visibility as to why their agents are churning. Maybe it's the experience that their agents are having. Maybe they need to be able to train them more, right, and do some quality management. So these are some of the questions you need to ask them to figure out, you know what, it's more than UCaaS. Now we got to start talking about contact center. Queue callback, right? You'll hear that pop up sometimes, and it's the ability for to prevent their customers from sitting on hold for too long. So you offer them a queue callback where the customer can actually punch in the phone number and hang up, And then when the next available agent is ready, they'll call the customer back. That's a huge feature. Analytics. This is a huge requirement. Analytics these days, because people who are running contact centers don't have visibility, right? And they want to look at the numbers and figure out the results. How long are their customers staying on hold? By the time their customer gets to their agent and they're completely ticked off, you don't know why, but if you had the ability to look into that customer journey and see, oh my gosh, this customer's been on hold for 30 minutes. No wonder they're peeved, right? So you want the analytics to give you more visibility. Intelligent routing with AI. AI is another buzzword. You know, you guys have all heard artificial intelligence. No longer is AI that Hollywood scene where it's all robotic, right? It's the AI these days that we're seeing is so intelligent. It sounds like you're dealing with a live person because they use natural language, right? And a lot of the customers that we're talking to now, they want the ability for their customers to do self-service. And there are some customers out there who say, you know what, the only time I want my customers talking to a live agent is when there's a true escalation. Other than that, I want some sort of an intelligent routing with AI that's going to provide them with all the answers they need, and they don't need to contact my agent live. If you have a customer who's talking about the customer experience, right? We have customers who say, I'm pretty sure we're losing business. I know we're abandoning calls. I just don't know how to prove that. They want to improve that customer experience. You start talking about contact center. And of course, outbound dialing. That's an easy one, right? If they're not only just doing inbound, but they're doing some sort of a predictive dialing or outbound calling, you immediately start thinking, I need a pivot. This has to be a contact center discussion. There's one thing I wanted to point out was, you know, a lot of times we'll talk to a partner, a customer, and they say, oh, I've got this opportunity. It's for a call center. And I think, wait, is it a call center or is it a contact center? And those two words are used interchangeably, but what I want to do is define, in my opinion, what the differences are. To me, a call center is really all inbound, right? It's those first three qualifiers I have here on this matrix. It's inbound only, real simple. But the minute you start talking about everything else that's complicated, that's listed in items 4 and below here on this matrix, you realize they need a full omni-channel contact center solution. Omni-channel meaning it's not just voice, it's not just one means for your customer to reach you, but a variety of different ways, whether it's chat, whether it's video, whether it's social media, right? All of these things are omni-channel. So when those needs arise, you need to pivot and talk about contact center. So on the next two slides, I'm a real visual person, and what I like to do is kind of lay it out so it's easy on the eyes and it makes more sense, right? When you refer back to that matrix I just showed you, this diagram here outlines what does that basic hosted PBX look like. Remember, it's inbound voice only. It hits a call queue, then it's routed through a hunt group or a ring group, and an agent touches the call might be recorded, and then finally you just have a basic CDR report, right? Customer detail records, real simple. You can do that all day long with a hosted PBX. Now look at this next slide. It starts to get kind of complex, right? There's lots of moving parts. This is when you start talking about omni-channel routing. So it's not just inbound voice. It could be coming through email. It could be coming through Twitter or Facebook. It could be coming through a chat or a text. You want the ability to receive those inquiries through multiple channels. And then from there, you want to be able to route it to maybe based on skill set or based on language, right? So you can route it to the specific agent who's better trained to answer or address those customer inquiries. And then from there, you want to take it a step further even. You want to say, you know what? All right, now I want to see what my agents are going through. I want to see how they interact with our customers. I want to see what's going on that's causing me all this attrition, and I want to reduce my churn. So now you're looking at quality management. How do you go about listening into these calls? How do you go about coaching and training your agents so that you can give them a better experience, so you can empower them to better answer your customers? And essentially that gives you a happier agent, a better agent experience, which ultimately leads to a better customer experience. What about workforce management? We get lots of customers who said, you know what, today what I'm doing for my staffing and my scheduling is I use an Excel spreadsheet. I kid you not, you hear it on pretty much every single call. And they say, you know what, though, we're planning on growing. We're adding another 100 agents in the next 6 months. There's no way I'm going to be able to scale and do this on an Excel spreadsheet. What can you do to help me automate this process? We bring in for workforce management. When you talk about analytics, right, and speech recognition as well. These are all things that come with a full-blown omni-channel contact center solution that's going to help address those needs that your customers are experiencing. And then ultimately, at the far right-hand side of this diagram, it's, okay, great, we have all these things in place and all these metrics. How do we go about looking at the results? How do we analyze the information that we have so that we know we are now doing all the right things to get us to where we need to be? And that could include custom reporting, right? Not just a basic CDR, but a whole slew of reports that you can dive deep into and custom create yourself so you can see all the information that you need to see. It could be real-time dashboards. You want to see how the agents are interacting, what the call hold times are. Are you meeting your SLAs as far as answering the customer's calls within 2 minutes or whatever the case may be? Analytics, again, huge, right? You need to have that visibility into that entire customer journey. What is your customer going through? What are your agents going through? So all these things here, I mean, take a look again at this diagram. Look how simple this one is that you can do, right? For a call center environment or just using a hosted PBX, compared to this, what this can do with a full-blown omni-channel contact center solution, okay? So hopefully that kind of helps you get an idea of the differences between and when you know you have to start pivoting that conversation. So now, you understand, you kind of have an idea on what questions to ask. How else can you spot, a contact center opportunity within a UC environment? I think it really comes down to 4 different things here. It comes down to a customer who has a complex environment. It comes down to a customer who's growing quickly, needs to scale. Maybe they have legacy equipment they need to upgrade. And of course, mostly important, I think, is they need visibility, right, to improve the customer experience. So in a complex environment, you might be looking at something like a retail customer would be a really good example, where they might have a corporate environment, and then they have remote store locations or remote workers even, right? And they have seasonal workers. So maybe they need to beef up their staff right around Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, if they're a floral shop, maybe around Christmas time, but the rest of the year remains pretty consistent. They need the ability to do that, so you need to bring in a contact center solution to help them with that. Here's a little bit of trivia here. I didn't know this till a few years ago, but do you know for a pizza joint, what 2 days out of the year they are the most busiest? Their phones are blowing up. 2 days. One day involves sport. The other day involves children. So one day is Super Bowl Sunday, and the other day is Halloween. I was kind of surprised, but it makes perfect sense. Halloween, like we just said, yeah, you order pizza, you feed your kids, and get them out the door when it turns dark. So having a contact center solution that can accommodate them on their seasons and peak times throughout the year is very important. Customers who are fastly growing. Maybe today they just have an inbound voice, and they know they want to improve upon their customer experience, so they know they need to add some chat, email support. And they know their on-prem solution isn't going to be able to scale as quickly as they need to. There's no way they can deploy that fast as compared to a cloud contact center solution, right? Customers who have legacy equipment is coming up for renewal and they don't want to spend the money, and they're tired of paying for maintenance fees. Customers who need visibility. How long are their customers on hold? What is their customer going through before they get to their agent? And what are their agents going through? So they can help empower their agents and reduce churn. So all these things are great ways that you're having a conversation to find out what your customer's environment looks like, and we can help you with that. And then we can be able to help you figure out what providers to bring in. So aside from all that, let's talk about what's the bottom line. How is this going to impact you? We feel strongly that contact center is something that's very important to talk about. We don't want you to be intimidated by this, right? It's bring us in when you need help. But I do want you to know that what we're experiencing is when we talk to a UCaaS customer, we're seeing that for every 10 seats of UCaaS, there's 1 seat of contact center in there, 10%. The opportunity is there. We just need to help you uncover it. Now, did you know that the average Telarus deal, the average monthly recurring for a contact center deal that we had last month was over $17,000? Can you imagine how many circuits you have to sell to reach $17,000 in monthly recurring? Oh, and by the way, what does that mean for you? That means that the commission payout for you is going to be about $2,400 a month in recurring, or about $29,000 a year. I don't know about you, but I could really use that extra amount to pay my mortgage. I just got into a contract to build a home out here, and I could really use that extra money. So it's lucrative. Compared to an average monthly recurring deal for UCaaS is about $2,000, I would say. About 100 seats is what we're seeing on average. And that's definitely nothing to sneeze at. But think about the opportunity for you to build upon that revenue when you start talking about contact center. So I want to tell you a little story about one of our agents we've had a few years back. He went into one of his customers and he sold them an MPLS connection. He could do this in his sleep. That's something he was so comfortable with. He sold that. He closed it for about $2,000. Again, $2,000 is good. It's nothing to sneeze about. And he was pretty happy about it until a few months later, he found out someone else, one of our other partners, went in and talked to the same customer, talked to them about contact center, ended up closing a $20,000 deal for contact center. Needless to say, this partner was not happy about it, not because someone else went in, that was our partner, but because he didn't think to go in and talk to them about contact center. He sold what he was comfortable with. So he came back to us and said, I really need your guys' help. Please train me on this contact center. How do I have the conversation? How do I start selling this? And we did. We spent time with him, trained him up, and guess what? Today, he sold over $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue in contact center solutions, and he's one of our top producing agents for contact center. So I don't want you to be intimidated by this. I want you to always think about, how do I have this conversation? And if you don't know how to get started, lean on our team. Right, our team, the team that I'm on is a UC and contact center specialty team. We can help you ask those questions. Here's our team. Ray Hicken, you guys probably know Ray. He is just the biggest guru when it comes to contact center. He is such a valuable resource for us for contact center. And he's really driving this contact center practice, not through Telarus internally, but also through our partner community. So Ray is a good one to know. Melissa Ng, she's also very important to know because she manages our sales registration. And she'll make sure when we tell you or we recommend what providers to go to, and you submit a registration link form to us, she'll make sure it gets registered. And if you don't hear back from those vendors, you need to let Melissa know or someone on our team know, and we'll make sure those vendors follow up with you to start that conversation. Bryson Carter, he is my counterpart for the East Coast. He will manage partners on the East, whereas I manage partners on the West. And actually, we're looking for someone, a third peer, to manage the East region so that Bryson, we can free up his time and he'll manage the Central region. So if you know of anyone who is very strong with a core background in contact center and UC solution, and then they're on the East Coast, let us know. We'd be happy to talk to them as we're building our team. But lean on us. We don't expect you to be the expert. We can help you be the expert. We'll bring in the vendors who can be the expert with you. All right, don't be shy about it. And again, we'll do the discovery calls with you. We'll provide you with all the tools needed. We'll help you do account mapping, help you generate your own leads and prospect. And what we're starting to do more on our team, and you'll see this come about next year, is in addition to the ticks, which, by the way, if you're in North Carolina, if you're in Charlotte, we have a tick coming up this Thursday, so please sign up for that. But in addition to the ticks, what we want to do is more tech talks and boot camps. Boot camps are extremely educational. It's a 4-hour session. We're going to bring in 3 contact center providers who are the leaders in the industry to talk to you and help you better understand their platform and how to work with them. We'll educate you further on contact center solutions, how to have those questions. So we're going to be starting to do more of this next year, so be on the lookout for boot camps. And please attend those if you can. They will be within region. And finally, I just want to leave you with this link here. So this presentation will be uploaded into your backend system, so you can click on this link. This link is really our lead reg form. And as I was mentioning, when you fill this out and send it in, Melissa will then make sure it's registered with our vendors and then get you all access to start speaking with them. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and unmute everyone. And I'm also going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to start looking at some of the chats here. Let me unmute everyone. So please, if you would do me a favor, mute yourself as well if you're not speaking. And then let's take a look at what we've got in chat here. So I don't see any questions in chat. Please ask me any questions at all, or if you need me to go over anything that I've already gone through. Are you guys able to differentiate? Do you know, that slide that I shared where we showed a bunch of different UCaaS providers? Yeah, I think you guys are all familiar with them. But when you're speaking to your customers and they might, they start asking you about, well, I need some skills-based routing, or I need some deeper analytics, or CRM integration. Do you guys know how to differentiate between those providers and who to start thinking about? Is everyone shy on the call today? Can you hear me? Okay. When will the deck be in the back office? Mark is asking. I will give this to our marketing team. I think it will be uploaded within a couple days at the most. So definitely this week. Any other questions? We have either a shy group or someone got too much sleep for the extra hour. Okay, so I hope that, it wasn't too confusing to bring in the conversation about contact center. What we wanted for you to, as a takeaway, is to really understand when you have the conversation, most of the conversations might be about UCaaS, right? You need to understand when that conversation hits a ceiling and we need to pivot and say, oh, it sounds like they might have a contact center opportunity. Let's bring in Telarus as a starting point and let's help figure this out. All right, so that's really the key. Yes, someone have a question?
Hi, this is Mohammed. How are you?
Hi, Mohammed. Good. How are you?
Good. Okay, the question is that how we know that because if you are searching online on LinkedIn or everywhere, is there any database or some information available?
Speak up, Mohammed. Speak up. Sorry, it's really hard to hear you. Could you?
Yeah, my question is that how we can figure out if somebody's contract is going to expire, because if we are talking with a prospect and he says I have 2 years or 3 years contract with another company, maybe their their solution is not very good, but they say we are logged into it. So is it any database available that you guys have where we can check that?
So I caught the tail end of that, a database, so you can log in and check what? I'm sorry.
Like if somebody is looking to buy, but they're in a contract with another provider, so how we can?
So we do have a matrix. It's in the GeoQuote tool that you have access to, and you can do this as you're having a conversation with the customer. If you can go in there and punch in different requirements, and it'll pull up just a basic matrix that says, okay, based on what you're looking for, what your customer's looking for, we think these providers here will fit what you need. And that's kind of a good starting point, but what I really encourage you to do is if you have this initial conversation with your customers, just make sure you take down a lot of notes and just figure out what it is that's important to them. What are the key drivers that's absolutely crucial for them, right? And bring it to my team. Let's just have a real quick conversation, just you and I, and we can figure that out. And then we can set up another call where we're on there with you and your customer and do a deeper dive and figure that out. So you can do something, right, just as a snapshot to figure out, but talk to us to really dive deeper. Did that answer the question? I apologize if I didn't get all your question there.
Yeah, can you hear me clearly now, or is still wrong?
Okay. So Val, hey Val, let's see here. Val has a question, says, I would love to keep some of those graphic slides about which UCaaS works with which CCaaS on my bulletin board for easy reference. Will we get a copy of the deck? Yes. So Val, we'll have this uploaded along with the deck, but I can also shoot it out to you as well. Because I love that slide also. It's a really good reference point for me. Sammy, sorry, go ahead.
This is Bill Qualia. I apologize. I ran late. I had we were meeting with my financial advisor. One question I have, the matrix, I find that helpful. And would you recommend that on our initial conversation with our clients to try to get as much information as possible loaded into that matrix so that we have a starting point to have a discussion?
Yeah.
Or would you want me to copy stuff down and then you and I talk to one another and then drill down on the matrix throughout that once we're trying to determine our first conversation with the customer? How is people having more success
Yeah.
by doing
So
it
what?
as talking to the individual?
Yeah. So what I would recommend, Bill, when you're first talking to your customer, right? They're coming to you because they need a solution of some sort. And you do your thing, right? You're good at what you do. So you talk them through, well, what do you have today? What do you need? What's going on, right? What's making you consider a new solution? And you can definitely, I would encourage you to use that matrix and click it off. And maybe some of the questions, if you say, do you need intelligent IVR for routing? They might say, what are you talking about? Well, that's okay. Don't check it off. Let's you and I talk to them about that then. Because I tell you what, these customers, sometimes they don't know what they need, right?
Exactly.
Until you start talking to them and asking them different questions about their pain points. And it's well, what's your pain point today? It's not that easy, right? It's you talk to them about how they're using their solution today. What is their use case? And then you start uncovering, oh, this is where they're stumbling. And I tell you what, I have a solution for that. So I would, go ahead.
The most exciting moment for me is when they say, you mean I can actually do that?
Yeah, isn't that great? What's exciting to me is when they tell me something and this light bulb goes off and I think, oh my gosh, I have the perfect solution for that.
Yeah.
But I would encourage, if you want to use that matrix, just send that to them and check it off in an email or whatever, just to get that conversation going with them. And then you and I can just use that as a starting point and just do a deeper dive on the call. I would recommend going that route.
So this is more of a kind of a logistics thing. I can actually save the results of that matrix for future use.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd like a copy of the slides today as well. Is it going to be loaded in the back office?
It will.
Okay.
It will. If you can't access it, just make sure to let me know.
Okay.
All right. So thanks, Bill. So Sammy says, I'm looking for some good reading material on UCaaS and contact center before the Bootcamps. Perfect. All right, Sammy, we'll, I think I've got something here. I've got some white papers, and then actually Ray Hicken, he wrote a really cool blog that I love to provide to customers and partners that talks about contact center trends and why we need to start talking about it. So let me dig up some materials for you. And let me see, UC and contact, and I'll make sure you get something before the bootcamp starts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so, okay, so Mohammed says, let's see, I don't know, contract with their, okay. So how can you find out about your client's contract, their existing providers? How do you find out if it's going to expire if you're prospecting on your own through LinkedIn? So I pretty much just ask the question. Sometimes the customers may not know. I've had this before when I used to work for a supplier. Customers didn't know when their contract expired. So I would do some digging around. And sometimes the vendors will tell you, Mohammed, if the contract with them is going to expire. Oftentimes they may not. So you're going to have to get that from your customer if possible. But this is great. And you're asking about prospecting on LinkedIn because that's the next webinar we're going to host on November 19th. So if you can attend that one, and we can discuss more. But I think the easiest answer is you're just gonna have to see if the customer can disclose that information to you. You know, it's not public information. So you're gonna have to do some digging around for that, unfortunately.
This is Bill Qualia again. I'm always amazed how many of my customers have no clue of, nor can they find their actual original contract of their services that they've chosen. I'm amazed at that.
I agree.
And that's always a good thing to say, you know, maybe on your initial connection. Hey, Joe, before we have our conference call, go out and make sure that you have found your the existing contracts on your services. I think that you'll see that that's going to be a good resource and a kind of a moment of enlightenment by you having that contract and us maybe taking a few minutes or so to just look it over real quick and give you a perspective on what you really have bought and when it expires. So I think that's always a good thing to kind of preload your initial discovery call with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good practice, and not all of us can be real organized, right? But if you can do this from the get-go, and if you're helping them close a deal, maybe hang on to those contracts or save those dates so when you have the conversation in the future, you can help them. And not to mention, if you're able to track when a contract is expiring, and again, this is really if you help them close the deal to begin with, right? But it come closer to contract expiration time, you're going to be adding value by saying, hey, you know what, your 3 years is up. What do you want to do? Do you want to renew for another year? Are you happy? Do you want to move to a different solution? Or, so it really offers you that ability to have that conversation with them and maybe even upsell. Maybe it is time for them to do a refresh and bring in contact center or something. So that's a good point, Bill. If you can keep track of that, you can have that discussion and really drive some of the, the value prop there for them.
And once again, thank you for the, I've been a strong proponent of using our portal, our agent portal, and to be active in all the different segments that are in that patient portal, because it's helped me over the years to be more efficient and proactive and effective as an advisor for my clients.
That's great. That's great to hear.
You guys do a good job. You do a good job.
Does anyone else have any questions at all? If you do think of questions after this, feel free to reach out to me or to Bryson or to Ray and let us know. And again, folks, don't be intimidated by contact center. I think a lot of my partners, when we talk to them, they're like, you know what, I don't know how to even have this conversation. So use that matrix like Bill was saying, do a little checklist and then bring my group into it and we can help you with that conversation. There's just so much revenue for you to build upon, especially if you're already selling voice or even circuits for that matter, right? Bring us in and we'll help you. And our vendors are there to also help you. They're eager to earn your business and help and train and educate you as well on contact center. So don't be shy. All right, folks, so I think we'll wrap this up. I'll give you 10 minutes of your time back. I, again, really appreciate the time that you're taking. Mondays are really busy days for me, as I'm sure they are for you, so I appreciate you guys being here and starting off your week with us. And we'll have this uploaded shortly, and give me a call and reach out to me with any questions, or if you can't get access to the recording. All right? Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.